Straight to a breaking story coming in on the Mallya Gate. UK newspaper, the Sunday Times, now has reported that the Indian liquor baron Vijay Mallya's name appears on the electoral rolls in the United Kingdom, with his country home in Britain as his recorded address. According to Sunday Times, Mallya confirmed the UK newspaper that his official address in the country is at Lady Walk, adding that he had supplied this information to the Indian authorities. The £11.5 million mansion was bought from the father of British Formula One champion Lewis Hamilton by the company with offshore links. The ownership structure of the Lady Walk is perfectly legal. The UK newspaper quoted Mallya as saying Mallya had left India on 2nd of March. The Enforcement Directorate has said it will seek an Interpol arrest warrant against Vijay Mallya based on the non-bailable warrant issued last week by a Mumbai court on money laundering issue. Let me quickly get across to managing editor TV Today Network, Rahul Kamal, for more on this. Rahul, now this is intriguing. This is going to be important as far as the Vijay Mallya case goes. His name is there in the electoral rolls in United Kingdom. This brings me to my question. Can a person who is a voter of any other country, can he be an MP, first of all, in India?
Now, this is something that we need to look at very carefully. Remember, this is a story that's been broken, Ankit, by the Sunday Times in the United Kingdom. It's done by the same special investigation team that had a whole series of stories on Lalit Modi, when Lalit Modi was in the news over here. Now they're reporting that Vijay Mallya is on the...
Rahul, I request you to stay on. We are now being joined by Mr. Dipesh. He is the reporter who in fact did this story in Sunday Times. Thank you so much for speaking to us here on India Today. If you could tell us what are the details that you have been able to uncover on your story, and what is the official statement given by Vijay Mallya on this?
Yes, hello. Well, I found it intriguing originally that Vijay Mallya appears on the UK electoral roll at a number of addresses when I started looking into his ownership or residencies in the UK. One of the properties that there's been a lot of speculation about is in Hertfordshire. It's an £11.5 million mansion called Lady Walk, where he shows up on the electoral roll as recently as the end of last year. So I was very surprised. The ownership of the actual property is somewhat opaque in that it's not owned by an individual. It's owned by what is called a limited liability partnership, which has two members, one of which traces back to the St. Kitts and Nevis tax haven in the Caribbean.
Okay.
So obviously, but having said that, lots of neighbours were saying, well, Vijay Mallya is definitely the owner of this property.
Yeah.
So we put this to him after a little bit of a dance, and he eventually came back and admitted that he's actually been a resident of Britain since 1992, which was totally news to me.
If I could ask you this question, just for my understanding of my viewers, does it mean that if Mr. Mallya is on the electoral rolls in the United Kingdom, does that make him a citizen in that country?
Well, this is maybe some confusion here. My understanding is there's a difference between being a British resident and necessarily having a British passport. So I think a number of people who come to this country, you originally start off, you have to live here for a number of years to become a resident. You apply for residency, and then subsequently, if you carry on living here or have residency rights, then you can apply for citizenship and for a British passport. Now, I'm not an immigration lawyer, and it strikes me that that is one of the key questions now if he has had his Indian passport revoked, and the Indian authorities are trying to get him back over there, because if he has managed to get a British passport, then clearly that process is going to be a lot more difficult.
That's right, because this also complicates the things here in India. He's a member of parliament as far as India is concerned, and it is going to be difficult if Mr. Vijay Mallya already has a citizenship of UK that has not been disclosed in India. That opens a different case altogether. If I could also understand from you, according to the rules, if somebody who needs to get a citizenship or voting rights in United Kingdom, does that mean that he has to, of course, on papers declare whether he is a citizen of some other country? Can a citizen of any other country get those voting rights?
Look, to be honest, I'm not an immigration lawyer, so I'm not 100% sure. But I mean, let me sort of repeat to you what Vijay Mallya has actually said in his email to me, so we've got some clarity on this. He says, I can confirm that my official address in the UK is at Lady Walk, which is the mansion in Hertfordshire. This is precisely why I'm registered in the electoral rolls at this address. I have also provided the very same address to the investigative authorities in India. He goes on to say the ownership structure of Lady Walk is perfectly legal, and then continues, I have been a British resident since 1992. Now, we've been trying to sort of get an answer out of him for quite some time, and he sort of eventually emailed this back quite late yesterday afternoon. So, unfortunately, I wasn't able to ask him some supplementary questions involving the exact thing you're asking me now about, look, has he got British citizenship and has he got a passport, which was obviously going to influence the way this whole thing is going to play out.
Mr. Gather, if I'll request you to stay on with me. Managing editor of India Today Group, Rahul Kamal, also would like to speak to you. Rahul, please go ahead.
So, Dipesh, it's your team that did a series of investigations during the Lalit Modi incident as well. I want to understand what else do you know about Vijay Mallya's presence? Because you just told Ankit that you've been looking at this story for a few weeks now. Have there been any sightings of Vijay Mallya at social do's in the United Kingdom? He's a very social person, used to attending high-profile parties, several of them connected with the Formula One. What's his presence in the United Kingdom been like since the time he ran away from India?
I think, to be honest, he's been fairly low-key. It's interesting that you mentioned the Lalit Modi story, because I kind of sense a bit of a deja vu scenario here, because you, for the second time, you have someone who's mired in various allegations in India, who kind of ends up coming to London and ends up living in quite nice properties here. What I would say is that when I went to visit the Hertfordshire mansion, clearly neighbours had seen him around from time to time. I think he probably uses it more as a country retreat on the weekend. I saw more sort of signs of activity in life when I went to his residence that he uses in the Overlooks Regent's Park in central London. Indeed, there was an Audi TT parked outside with the Force India logo across it. When I knocked on the door and asked to speak to Dr. Mallya, the sort of security guard went inside to check, first of all, came out and then promptly escorted me off the premises.
That's interesting. Now, I know you said that you're not an immigration lawyer, but you've been reporting in the United Kingdom for many years now. Do you have some sense of what his current status is? If his name appears on the British electoral rolls, does that mean he could potentially be a British national by now? How is it even possible?
Hello?
Diplomatic Indian passport.
Yeah, I mean, look, my understanding is that there are several stages to getting a British passport if you're a national of another country. I think it starts off with, living here for a certain amount of time and getting residency, and then I think you have to sort of put in a few more years before you can actually claim citizenship. If he is saying that he has been a resident of the UK since 1992, then clearly quite a lot of time has elapsed, and it is quite possible that he might have acquired citizenship. That's the $64,000 question, I guess. If he appears on the electoral roll...
Just to clarify this to our viewers, Dipesh, unlike India, where you can only be a citizen of one country at one time, in the United Kingdom, dual citizenship is allowed. So you're saying it's perfectly possible that Dr. Mallya could have been an Indian passport holder and have had a British passport at the same time. That's not allowed as per Indian law. Is that allowed as per British law, Dipesh?
I think people can be dual British nationals. Yeah, I mean, there are people, who are originally of Pakistani origin who still have their Pakistani passport. A friend of mine who's recently became a British citizen, he's actually from Australia, and I believe he still holds Australian nationality. So that is actually allowed over here. I know the rules are very different over there.
Okay, so what happens next, Dipesh? Now that you've established that he's a member of the electoral rolls, what happens next? Using your experience, could you give our viewers a sense of what Vijay Mallya's options are? His passport stands revoked. You've just uncovered another criminal activity because he cannot have two passports. If he has an Indian diplomatic passport, that's it. He cannot have another passport simultaneously. So what happens next in your view? Can this man continue to stay in the United Kingdom now that you're saying he actually has he's actually in the electoral rolls there?
Just to clarify, so not getting beyond ourselves, I'm not saying that he definitely has a UK passport. He is saying that he's got British residency, and he is on the electoral roll, so he's registered to vote in various elections in the UK. There's still a process that is required to become a British passport holder. What we need to now find out is whether he's managed to proceed with that and has acquired such a document. And if he has, then clearly more questions are going to be asked, and the whole process of getting him back to India is going to be complicated, no doubt.
Oh, absolutely. This indeed is a cracker of an expose which throws up several questions that the Indian government and the investigative agencies and courts in India will now need to contend with. Thank you very much, Dipesh Gadar, for joining us, and congratulations on this fantastic story. With this, I take you back to my colleague Ankit. We will, of course, keep tracking this very, very closely, as we now need to speak to the Ministry of External Affairs. We need reactions from immigration lawyers, from enforcement directorate officials on what their backup plan is. The Indian government this morning was very confident that Mallya was running out of options now that his passport has been revoked, but he seems to be one step ahead of the Indian enforcement agencies, Ankit.
Rahul, before we move on from the story, I quickly wanted to understand from you that if indeed the government of India is also able to verify this claim of Mr. Mallya being on the electoral rolls there in UK, does that mean that there is a separate investigation that would now be, would be launched against him? Because according to the laws, this is going to be illegal as far as the Indian laws are concerned, and plus he's an MP.
Oh, absolutely, because if you listen to the press conference that Vikas Swarup, India's foreign ministry spokesperson, did earlier this week, he was asked a specific question that is it possible for Vijay Mallya to have two passports? And he laughed it off, saying that don't you know the law? It's not possible to have two passports. You can only have a diplomatic passport of one country, especially if that country is India. There are certain countries that allow dual nationality. India is not one of those countries. This is a grave offense. What Vijay Mallya also seems to be doing is he's burning his bridges here. So far, in all the hearings in the courts, his team of advocates has said, let's cut a deal. He's not offering the full amount of loans that are due, but he's been offering a partial repayment. Now that he's got a separate passport, he's got a separate presence on the electoral rolls in the UK, it seems this man realizes he doesn't want to come back to India. This seems to be another Lalit Modi now that we have on our hands.
That's right. Former CBI Director Joginder Singh is also on the phone line for more on this story. Mr. Singh, now this opens a different angle as far as the Vijay Mallya story is concerned. As far as the investigation into this matter goes, now what are the things that the investigative agency would be looking for? It's a new expose that Mr. Mallya is indeed is listed on the voter list in United Kingdom, and something that he has not disclosed to any agency here in India.
I think it is a very serious thing if what you say is true. But I don't think he will be that stupid to admit or take the citizenship of another country. And it might be something else, because you also had a case of Rahul Gandhi, who said he showed himself as a British citizen. And then the British government, I think, to cover it up, said, it's a kind of mistake. So if it is, you can forgive for Rahul Gandhi. I think Mallya also has some claim for that. But whatever he has done, if it is true, it is a fraud, cheating, and misleading the government here. And he went from India not on a British passport.
Right.
He went on the diplomatic passport.
Okay.
So I think we are setting the things too far. He might have mentioned to somebody that he is a citizen. I don't believe that a man with this kind of acumen and one of the top businessmen of his own time,
All right, that was Joginder Singh, former CBI director, talking to us about this new angle, this new complication that has now emerged as far as the Vijay Mallya case goes. Thank you so much also to Deepesh.